It was Halloween night, and my friends and I were excitedly gearing up for the annual Halloween-themed scavenger hunt organized by the town. The rules were simple: follow the clues, find the hidden items, and race to be the first team to reach the final destination. Little did we know that this Halloween night would turn into a terrifying ordeal that we would never forget. As the sun began to set, we gathered in the town square, each team eagerly awaiting their first clue. The cool autumn air carried an eerie sense of excitement, and the moon cast an otherworldly glow over the town's decorations. I was part of a team with my closest friends, Sarah, Mike, and Emily. When the clock struck 7 p.m., the scavenger hunt began. The first clue led us to the old abandoned library on the outskirts of town. The building had been deserted for years, its darkened windows and crumbling facade adding to its spooky allure. As we entered the library, the door creaked ominously behind us. The air inside was heavy with the scent of dust and decay, and the faint glow of our flashlights illuminated the long-forgotten shelves of books. "This place gives me the creeps," Emily whispered. "Come on, it's just part of the fun," Mike replied, trying to sound brave. We followed the clues through the dusty aisles, solving riddles and piecing together the puzzle that would lead us to the next location. But as we made our way to the second clue, we noticed that we were being watched. A chilling feeling crept over us, and we turned to see a shadowy figure lurking in the shadows. "Did you see that?" Sarah asked, her voice quivering. I glanced back, but the figure had disappeared. "It was probably just our imagination," I said, trying to convince myself. We continued with the hunt, but the feeling of being watched lingered. As we reached the next location, an abandoned factory on the outskirts of town, the shadows seemed to dance around us, and we couldn't shake the feeling that we were not alone. Despite our growing unease, we pressed on, determined to win the scavenger hunt. But as we reached the final location, a secluded clearing in the woods, our excitement turned to fear. The clearing was bathed in an eerie glow, and a strange symbol had been carved into the ground. We looked around, expecting to find the next clue, but there was nothing. "That's weird." "There's no clue here," Emily said, her voice trembling. As we turned to leave, a bone-chilling laugh echoed through the woods, freezing us in our tracks. The shadowy figure from earlier emerged from the darkness, and this time, there was no mistaking it, he was stalking us. "Who are you? What do you want?" Mike shouted, his voice wavering with fear. The figure didn't respond. Instead, he started to approach us slowly, step by step, his laughter growing louder and more menacing. "Let's get out of here," Sarah yelled, her voice filled with panic. We ran as fast as our legs could carry us, adrenaline coursing through our veins. The woods seemed to close in around us, and every rustle of leaves and snap of twigs sent chills down our spines. As we reached the edge of the woods and made it back to the town square, we glanced back, but the figure was nowhere to be seen. "What was that? Who was he?" Emily gasped, trying to catch her breath. "I don't know, but we need to get help," I replied. We rushed to find the organizers of the scavenger hunt and told them what had happened. They assured us that it must have been a prank gone wrong and promised to investigate. The rest of the night was a blur of fear and unease. We stuck together, constantly looking over our shoulders, but the shadowy figure was nowhere to be found. The excitement of the scavenger hunt had turned into a nightmare, and the Halloween night that had started so full of fun and games had become a night of terror. To this day, we still don't know who or what was hunting us that Halloween night. Was it just a prank, as the organizers claimed? Or was there something more sinister lurking in the shadows? We may never have the answers. But one thing is for sure, Halloween will never be the same again for me and my friends. Now before I begin reading the next story, I wish you a very happy Halloween. It'll be a delight if you could support my work by subscribing to the channel and leaving a like on this video. It was Halloween night, and the anticipation was palpable as my friends and I dressed in our finest attire for the annual masquerade ball at the historic Blackwood Manor. The mansion had a reputation for its extravagant parties, but this year's invitation promised an even grander affair. As we entered the mansion, the opulence overwhelmed us. Candlelit chandeliers adorned the ceilings, casting eerie shadows across the marble floors. The air was filled with the aroma of perfume, mixed with a subtle hint of something unsettling. Guests donned elaborate masks, their identities hidden behind a veil of mystery. The host of the evening, a man shrouded in an elegant cloak, welcomed us with a haunting smile. His dark eyes seemed to pierce through our masks and into our souls, sending a shiver down my spine. As the night progressed, the atmosphere became increasingly eerie. The music played with a haunting melody, and the laughter of the guests echoed through the grand hall. Yet, there was an underlying tension in the air, a feeling that something was not quite right. Whispers circulated amongst the guests, rumors of strange occurrences and unexplainable events. Some claimed to have seen figures moving in the shadows, while others spoke of peculiar symbols hidden in the decorations. My friends and I decided to investigate further, curiosity getting the better of us. We mingled with the masked guests, trying to decipher who was hiding behind each disguise. The more we observed, the more we realized that some of the guests seemed out of place. Their masks seemed to meld with their faces, their identities perfectly concealed. As the night wore on, we noticed peculiar patterns among the guests. Those wearing animal-themed masks seemed to move in packs, their behavior mirroring the creatures they represented. Others with more intricate, porcelain-like masks moved with an unsettling grace, their expressions a mask within a mask. The eerie ambience grew, and we felt as though we were being watched from every corner of the mansion. Each time we turned to confront the source of our unease, nothing would be there. As I walked through a dimly lit corridor, I caught a glimpse of a figure disappearing around the corner. Curiosity compelled me to follow, and I found myself in a room filled with haunting portraits of masked faces. There, among the artwork, stood the host, his eyes fixed on me. "Enjoying the festivities, my dear guests?" he asked, his voice sending chills down my spine. "Indeed, it's quite a spectacle," I replied, trying to sound casual. He smiled, and it seemed as though his eyes bore into my soul. "Ah, but the true spectacle has yet to begin," he said cryptically before gliding away. My heart pounded in my chest as I rejoined my friends, sharing the encounter. The unease among us grew, and we knew we had to unravel the mystery of the masked guests and the intentions of the enigmatic host. As the night approached its peak, the mansion seemed to transform. Shadows danced on the walls, and the whispers among the guests grew louder. We tried to leave, but each time we made our way to the exit, we found ourselves back in the heart of the party. Time blurred, and the line between reality and illusion became increasingly blurred. It was as if we were trapped in a never-ending nightmare, unable to escape the clutches of the mansion. Desperation set in, and we knew we had to confront the host. Gathering our courage, we made our way to his study, determined to uncover the truth behind the masquerade. As we entered, the host turned to face us, his sinister smile sending shivers down our spines. "What is the meaning of this?" I demanded, trying to mask my fear. He chuckled darkly. "You see, my dear guests, this masquerade is not just a party. It is a ritual, a gathering of souls seeking to shed their mortal disguises and embrace their true identities." The revelation was chilling, and we realized that the host intended to unmask the secrets hidden behind our facades. He believed that he could strip away our identities and expose our darkest desires. In a moment of bravery, we decided to resist his twisted game. With all our strength, we refused to participate in his sinister ritual. The host's smile faltered, and his power over us began to wane. In the confusion that followed, we managed to find our way out of the mansion. The night air was cold and refreshing, and as we stepped outside, the spell of the masquerade began to break. We never spoke of that Halloween night again, but the memories of the haunted masquerade ball at Blackwood Manor would forever linger in our minds. The masks we wore that night were not mere disguises, but reflections of our inner selves, dark and vulnerable. The experience had taught us that not all masks are meant to be worn, and that some secrets are better left buried beneath the surface. That Halloween night, we learned that true horror lies not in the supernatural, but in the twisted depths of the human soul. As Halloween approached, my group of thrill-seeking friends decided to try something different for our annual spooky celebration. We stumbled upon an intriguing advertisement for a Halloween-themed escape room party experience, promising an adrenaline-pumping night of puzzles and challenges. Eager for a night of thrilling fun, we quickly signed up for the adventure. On Halloween night, we arrived at the address provided, an old and unassuming building tucked away in a remote part of town. The sight of the dimly lit entrance gave the place an eerie vibe, setting the perfect atmosphere for a thrilling night. Once inside, we were greeted by the host, a tall, enigmatic figure with piercing eyes that seemed to see through our very souls. He led us to the escape room, and as we crossed the threshold, a sense of foreboding filled the air. The escape room was meticulously designed to resemble an abandoned mansion. The creaking floorboards, flickering candlelight, and eerie music created an immersive and spine-chilling experience. "We have 60 minutes to escape this room," the host explained. "Only by solving a series of puzzles and challenges will you find the way out." Eager to prove our problem-solving skills, we split into pairs and began exploring the room, searching for clues that would lead us to freedom. As time ticked away, we unraveled intricate riddles and pieced together cryptic messages hidden throughout the room. With every puzzle we solved, the atmosphere grew increasingly unsettling. The shadows seemed to dance, and the haunting music created an aura of suspense. Yet, we remained focused on the game, driven by the thrill of the challenge. As we progressed, we noticed that some puzzles revealed eerie images and disturbing messages. We tried to brush them off as part of the Halloween theme, but deep down, we couldn't shake the feeling that there was something sinister at play. However, it wasn't until we stumbled upon a peculiar puzzle that we started to question the nature of the escape room. The puzzle depicted a haunting figure with hollow eyes and outstretched arms. Below it was an ominous message: one must give to gain freedom. Unease washed over us as we tried to make sense of the cryptic message. What did it mean to give? Was it a clue or merely part of the Halloween theatrics? The clock continued to tick down relentlessly, and our anxiety grew. We decided to confront the host, seeking clarification about the cryptic message. But when we approached his desk, he was nowhere to be found. Feeling a growing sense of urgency, we resolved to solve the puzzle on our own. As we worked together, it became apparent that the clues pointed to a hidden compartment behind a painting. As we removed the painting, we were shocked to find a real human skull hidden inside. Panic washed over us as we realized that this escape room experience might be more sinister than we had initially thought. Fearful and desperate, we tried to open the door to exit the room, only to find that it was locked from the outside. We were trapped. Tensions escalated within the group as the realization sunk in that this was not just a game anymore. The puzzles and challenges had turned into something more dangerous, and we were at the mercy of an unknown force. Time seemed to blur as we searched frantically for another way out. With every puzzle we solved, more unsettling imagery and cryptic messages surfaced, revealing a dark narrative of tragedy and despair. Our sense of camaraderie faded as suspicion and paranoia crept in. We started to doubt each other's intentions, wondering if one of us had set up this elaborate trap. The friendly Halloween-themed escape room had turned into a psychological nightmare. In a moment of desperate realization, we understood what the cryptic message meant. We had to confront our fears and vulnerabilities to escape the room. It was not about solving puzzles anymore, but facing our darkest emotions. As we shared our deepest fears and insecurities, a strange energy filled the room. The puzzles suddenly shifted, becoming more aligned with our personal stories. It was as though the room was feeding off our fears, using them against us. But in that vulnerability, we also found strength. We united as a team, supporting each other through the emotional challenges. And just as the countdown reached its final moments, the door slowly creaked open. Gasping for breath, we stumbled out of the escape room, shaking and disoriented. The host stood before us, a wicked grin on his face. "Congratulations, you've faced your deepest fears," he said. "You've made it out alive." Confusion and anger filled us as we demanded an explanation for the dangerous and psychologically manipulative experience. The host's grin faded, replaced with a chilling seriousness. The escape room was designed to be a mirror, to reflect the darkness within each of you. It was never meant to harm you physically, but to challenge your minds and souls. We were furious at the deception, but the host simply shrugged. Fear is a powerful motivator. It reveals our true selves and pushes us to confront our deepest desires and regrets. As we left the eerie building behind, we were forever changed by the haunting escape room experience. Halloween would never be the same again, as we learned that sometimes, the scariest things are not supernatural, but the darkness that lurks within us all. It was Halloween night, and our group of teenagers was excitedly heading to a legendary Halloween party that was said to be held in a remote cornfield on the outskirts of town. The annual event had become a local tradition, and rumors circulated that it was the spookiest and most thrilling Halloween party one could attend. As we approached the cornfield, the setting sun cast eerie shadows over the tall stalks, creating an unsettling atmosphere. The cornfield was vast, and in the darkness, it felt like an endless maze. With the party already in full swing, we joined the crowd, laughing and dancing among the cornstalks. Pumpkins adorned with sinister smiles and flickering candles lit up the area, adding to the festive but creepy ambience. As the night went on, however, we began to notice strange occurrences around us. Shadows seemed to shift and dance on their own, and faint whispers carried on the wind, even though no one was nearby. We tried to brush it off, attributing it to the Halloween ambience, but the unease lingered. As we continued to explore the cornfield, we noticed that some paths seemed to lead nowhere, leaving us feeling lost and disoriented. The rustling of the cornstalks behind us made us jump, but when we turned around, there was no one in sight. "What's going on?" one of my friends asked, her voice shaking. "I don't know," I replied, trying to hide my own growing fear. Maybe it's just the wind playing tricks on us. But deep down, we all knew it wasn't just the wind. The atmosphere had become charged with an unnerving tension that was impossible to ignore. As we regrouped with the others, we realized that some of our friends were missing. Panic began to set in, and we frantically searched the cornfield, calling out their names. But our voices seemed to be swallowed by the vast expanse of the corn, and there was no response. "We should stick together," I suggested, my voice trembling. But just as we gathered together, a blood-curdling scream pierced the night air. It was one of our friends, and it sounded as though they were in pain. Without hesitation, we rushed toward the source of the scream, our hearts pounding in our chests. As we turned a corner, we saw our friend huddled on the ground, clutching their ankle in agony. "What happened?" we asked, trying to assess the situation. I don't know," they stammered, tears streaming down their face. Something grabbed me from the corn." The fear in their eyes was enough to send chills down our spines. Whatever had taken hold of our friend was not a mere Halloween prank. There was something sinister lurking within the cornfields. With newfound determination, we decided to leave the party and head back to safety. But as we retraced our steps, the cornfield seemed to shift around us, leading us in circles. "This doesn't make sense," one of us said, frustration evident in their voice. "We should have reached the edge by now." The cornstalks towered over us, and the darkness made it impossible to see beyond a few feet. The realization struck us like a bolt of lightning: we were lost. Panic began to take hold as we struggled to find a way out. The whispers that had been faint before now grew louder, almost as if the corn itself was mocking us. As we pressed on, fear escalated into terror. We heard rustling and saw fleeting shapes in the darkness, but whenever we turned to look, nothing was there. The corn seemed to be alive, taunting us with its eerie movements. Hours passed, and exhaustion set in. We were physically and emotionally drained, but still, we pressed on, desperate to escape the seemingly endless cornfield. Then, just as we were on the verge of giving up hope, we heard the distant sound of laughter and music. It was the Halloween party. With newfound energy, we followed the sounds, and eventually, the cornfield opened up, revealing the party lights ahead. As we emerged from the cornfield, we were greeted by the puzzled looks of our friends. "Where have you been?" they asked. "We thought you guys left hours ago." We couldn't find the words to explain our terrifying ordeal in the cornfield. We simply nodded, grateful to be back in the safety of the party. As we gathered around the bonfire, we shared our experiences with the others, but no one seemed to have an explanation for what had happened. Some shrugged it off as Halloween pranks, while others suggested that our fear had played tricks on our minds. But deep down, we knew the truth. Something malevolent lurked within the cornfields that Halloween night. We had faced something beyond explanation, something that defied the bounds of reality. From that night on, the cornfield was known as a place of nightmares, a sinister reminder that not all Halloween tales were merely stories. Sometimes, the most terrifying encounters are the ones that are all too real. And on that fateful Halloween, we had experienced a horror that would stay with us forever, hidden within the twisting labyrinth of the corn. It was Halloween, and my friends and I were eager to host the most thrilling and chilling party of the year. We had heard rumors about the old asylum on the outskirts of town, and we thought it would be the perfect venue for our Halloween gathering. With its crumbling walls, eerie corridors, and haunting history, it seemed like the ideal setting to create an unforgettable Halloween atmosphere. As we arrived at the asylum, our excitement mixed with a hint of trepidation. The moon cast an eerie glow over the decaying building, and the night air was filled with a chilling breeze that seemed to whisper secrets from the past. As the party got underway, we worked hard to set the spooky ambience. Cobwebs adorned the corners, jack-o'-lanterns flickered with an eerie light, and creepy sound effects played in the background. Everything was perfect. As the night progressed, however, strange things began to happen. Guests started to complain of odd sensations, as if they were being watched by unseen eyes. A sense of unease hung in the air, but we all attributed it to the creepy atmosphere we had created. In the corner of the main hall, we had set up a photo booth with props like old straitjackets and creepy masks. But when we looked at the photos taken, we noticed shadowy figures lurking in the background, figures that weren't there when the photos were taken. "It's just a glitch in the camera," I reassured my friends, trying to dismiss the unease that was slowly creeping over me. As the night wore on, some guests claimed they saw movement in the dark corners of the asylum, shadows dancing where there was no light. At first, we laughed it off, thinking it was just their imagination playing tricks on them. But soon, even I couldn't ignore the unsettling events. I felt a cold presence brush against my skin, and the hairs on the back of my neck stood on end. As I glanced around, I thought I saw the flicker of movement, but every time I looked closer, there was nothing there. We decided to explore the asylum, searching for answers to the strange occurrences. The corridors were dimly lit, and the floor creaked beneath our feet. It was as if the building itself was alive, breathing in the shadows of its own dark past. We stumbled upon an old patient room, the remnants of restraints still hanging from the walls. As we stood there, the air seemed to grow colder, and a feeling of dread washed over us. A sudden gust of wind blew open a nearby door, revealing an old record room. Curiosity getting the better of us, we stepped inside, hoping to find some clues about the asylum's history. As we flipped through the dusty records, we learned of the asylum's tragic past, stories of mistreatment, suffering, and despair. The more we read, the more we felt a connection to the tormented souls who once inhabited these walls. We decided to hold a séance, hoping to make contact with the spirits trapped in the asylum. We lit candles in a circle and held hands, calling out to any presence that might be lingering. At first, nothing happened, and we began to think it was all just a prank. But then, the room seemed to grow colder, and the candles flickered violently. A sense of foreboding washed over us as we felt a presence in the room. Suddenly, one of my friends gasped, claiming to see a shadowy figure in the corner. Panic spread through the group as we all began to see the same apparition. Terrified, we ended the séance and rushed out of the asylum, our hearts pounding in our chests. We returned to the main hall, hoping the safety of the crowd would dispel the fear that had settled upon us. But as the night wore on, the haunting visions and encounters with the asylum's dark past continued. Guests claimed to hear disembodied voices, and some even felt unseen hands brushing against their skin. In the early hours of the morning, we decided to end the party and leave the asylum. As we stepped outside, the first light of dawn broke over the horizon, chasing away the darkness of the night. As we stood there, Catching our breath and trying to make sense of the night's events, we couldn't help but wonder what had truly transpired. Was it all just a product of our overactive imaginations, fueled by the Halloween atmosphere? Or had we truly experienced the haunting of the asylum's dark past? One thing was certain, the Halloween party at the abandoned asylum was an experience none of us would ever forget. We had come seeking a night of thrills and chills, but what we found was something far more unsettling and mysterious. As we drove away from the asylum, the memories of the night lingered in our minds, a constant reminder that some places hold secrets and energies that are beyond our understanding. And while we may never truly know what happened that Halloween night, we knew one thing for certain: the asylum was a place best left to the shadows of its past, a haunting reminder of the horrors that once dwelled within its walls.